Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, The Next Best Bet, in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now, on to episode 78 of The Next Best Bet. We've had a packed weekend of some football, Brett. You and I did not do that well with our episode 77 picks, though.
No, but see, Higgins, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. You
Oh,
can't
yeah?
say your record if one of your games is still going on. So
Oh, I
always
gotcha.
take Sunday Night Football. And then my record's TBD.
Well, you got one win, and I see 5 losses. We'll see if you get the second win. I got 2 wins and 4 losses. So, not a great round. How about Duke getting trolled by the Boston College Twitter posting +6 LOL? That was not what I expected from Duke. I thought that they would have had their tune-up game and be ready. They were not.
Yeah, I thought that tune-up game was going to help a little more too. Duke disappointed, but Higgins, I won the right game. I won my Levy lock. If there's one game to tail me on, I said Falcons Cowboys over, and that one came through for me. So that one was a crazy finish that we'll actually talk about more.
Yeah, that was an amazingly impressive game. Let's get to Beginner's Boulevard first, though. We're going to talk about the odds boost. These are also called specials. It depends on what sportsbook you're working out of, but the term odds boost was introduced to the U.S. market by multiple New Jersey sportsbook operators shortly after sports betting became legalized.
Yeah, and it's basically a promotion where they increase the odds or the return value on a certain wager. So I've had some great luck with this stuff during week one. I've downloaded lots of apps to kind of chase these promotions a little bit. And, in states like New Jersey, that's a great thing to look for and always, judge value. See where you're getting that value in the odds boost market.
Some exposure can also create some odds boosts I've seen as well. Some of them can be very specific parlays plus a team wins, and then some of them can just be a generic spread or a slightly alternate spread than what the game's currently sitting at, with an odds boost to kind of try to help with some exposure for the sports book. The MLB, though, let's jump into that because the playoff push is ramping up as we have 7 days until the end of the MLB season. 5 teams in the AL have clinched. 2 teams in the NL have clinched. It's an expanded 16-team playoff format, though, so a lot of teams are still up for grabs here.
Yeah, the expanded playoff allows a lot more teams to be in the race. Although Higgins, I know they're not technically eliminated yet, but like we don't really think the Angels are making it.
No.
I'm pretty low on my Mets. As much as fun as this weekend was, we're probably not making it.
Yeah, the Mets are sitting at a 7% chance of making the playoffs right now. It would take quite a few wins and a little bit of help, I imagine, for that scenario to take place. It's important to pay attention to some of this, though, because some teams have a lot to play for, whether it be seeding or a playoff position, and some teams can throw in the towel already and might be packing it in and might not have their hearts invested into some of these games, and that's teams like the Red Sox, Royals, Rangers, the Nationals, Pirates, Diamondbacks, teams that have already officially been eliminated as of Sunday night. And then also take a look at some of the ILs with some of these teams because banged up teams as we're heading down the playoff stretch, that's a familiar aspect of baseball that we're used to from year to year. And some big names are coming back and some big names are heading onto the IL.
Yeah, obviously the Reds still in the hunt. Sonny Gray's expected to return on Tuesday, so that should help them out. He's pitched pretty well for them. Bryce Harper with the Phillies and Nolan Arenado with the Rockies. They're undergoing further evaluation currently. Bryce Harper for his back and Arenado for his shoulder. and Kyle Schwarber was pulled from Sunday night game, Higgins. So we'll have to see what they announce throughout the day on Monday. But those are some things to keep an eye on. I know you and I both like the Cubbies on Monday anyway.
Yes, I'm leaning towards the Cubs. I'm leaning towards the Yankees. The Cubs are playing the Pirates, who are 1-9 in their past 10 games, and I don't really expect that trend to change before the end of the season because the Pirates are already eliminated. The only reason I'm leaning the Yankees and I'm not on the Yankees right now is one, we don't have a line out on Sunday night as we're recording this, but two, the Yankees starting pitcher isn't even decided yet, so we don't know who's going to be on the mound for the Pinstripes yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game for that Yankees pitcher no matter what, pitching in that small Buffalo ballpark. But honestly, I'll probably go with the over in that game. I think both Toronto and the Yankees bats can score pretty much in any ballpark, and the fact that they're in a small one with all those home run hitters and questionable pitching, I'm in on that over.
I am going to have a money line parlay that I'm going to be on for Monday, and I was tempted to pick each of these three teams individually on the money line because I think that there's good value for each of them, and that's kind of why I paired them together for this larger parlay that I'm getting a plus 389 right around plus 400. And it's the Phillies who face off against the Nationals, who I said are already eliminated from contention. The Phillies are they're fighting for a playoff spot though, haven't clinched anything yet, so they're still jockeying for that playoff seeding. I think Zach Wheeler on the mound, who's 4-0 with a 2.62 ERA, is just going to outclass Sanchez, who's got a 7.38 ERA for the Nationals. And then you take a look at the Cardinals; they're facing off against the Royals. Got Adam Wainwright on the mound. He dealt with some injuries earlier in the season, but he's rather fresh now considering he is back. He's been pitching rather well, at least 6 innings per outing typically, and he's facing off against Carlos Hernandez, who hasn't been able to get a decision in any of his games yet. So I like Wainwright there. And then Houston Astros traveling to Seattle. Now, Seattle's not officially, they're not officially eliminated from the playoff contention yet, but they have like a 0.9% chance, I believe it was. So extremely, extremely low chances that Seattle actually does make the playoff push, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Astros, who are still trying to get that clinched, come up there and nail that final nail into the coffin in a sense.
Yeah, I'm just I don't know. I could really see Seattle winning that one, but I'm a little biased. I like this betting the Seattle team. They've been fun all year, and I'm a big Kyle Lewis fan, the rookie up there. So, uh, maybe I'm not the best person to listen to on that one. But I
A thing to
definitely
note for
like
that
that
Seattle
Seattle.
game is Seattle's been good at home at 12-9, whereas Houston on the road has had some trouble at 7-18.
Yeah, that would definitely make that plus 135 there, or plus 130, excuse me, a little more attractive, honestly, for me. But some other games of note, Higgins. Marlins Braves, first place in the NL East, is still up for grabs. The Marlins only 3 games back with 7 to go. So this is a big series here, and the Marlins can make the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. And I kind of said that's a big achievement, and you kind of countered even with the expanded playoffs. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, the Miami Marlins, while it would be great, it's a great Cinderella story considering everyone expected them to be bad. Doesn't really feel legitimately redeeming considering the expanded playoffs, considering the shortened season, considering that they're used to playing in front of no fans while everyone else had to kind of get used to that. So Miami finally making the playoffs and getting over the hump in this, while it's great, I don't think it means as much as it looks as it does on paper.
My guy Higgins just taking shots at the Miami fan base in this whole thing. Jeez. Duck and
They don't
cover
show
South
up. They'd rather
Florida.
be at the Miami Heat game.
They'd rather be on South Beach, Higgins. But I don't know. I think, especially with the early season COVID issues they have, I think it's a pretty impressive accomplishment for this team. But it's definitely interesting to hear a lot of perspectives on that because the expanded playoffs, the shortened season, all that coming in to breaking a postseason drought, obviously with the Padres as well. Now, the Padres, slightly more impressive season this year, possibly with an MVP also. But, uh, those two teams, it's interesting to see how fans react to the playoff gear and celebrations. And are you going to put a banner up? Like, do you put a banner up? I don't know.
Would the fans even be there to see it?
Uh, oof, I hope fans are back for 2021. I hope so.
The other series that I'm interested in that starts on Monday, though, Brett, before we move away from the MLB, is the Milwaukee Brewers versus the Cincinnati Reds. Now, you mentioned the Reds are getting Sonny Gray back on Tuesday. That's a big boost for their rotation, obviously. But the Reds and the Brewers, they're sitting tied at the 3-4 spot in the NL Central. They're both jockeying to try to catch up to the Cardinals, try to maybe get an NL wild card spot. And the Reds hold the slight edge because they've played two more games than the Brewers have, but this three-game series can decide a lot for both those teams' futures, and so I'll be very interested to see how that goes. The over/under in the Monday game is at 7.5, and that tempted me for a little bit, but I'm gonna stay away from that game, I think.
Yeah, I don't have much of a read on that game at all, but um I think, the Reds are obviously in the thick of it, and they had a lot of high expectations coming into this year. Milwaukee, I think people may have expected to regress a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see, if Milwaukee's playing a little freer and Cincinnati's feeling the pressure, or if Cincinnati can kind of keep their hot streak going. I know they won on Sunday. Aquino finally playing for the Reds, so
Well, I'm sure there will be plenty of surprises in the MLB as the playoff push happens over this next week. Some teams get in that we will be surprised in, and there will probably be a collapse or two that might catch us by surprise as well. But the NHL, they're near the end of their playoffs with the Stanley Cup going on right now. Doesn't really feel like it to me, Brett. I mean, it's Dallas versus Tampa, two southern cities representing hockey, which is a cold sport. That's already weird. The fact they're playing in Canada with no fans, that's weird. Dallas has the 1-0 lead. I think Tampa Bay is going to come back and get this win, though. Tampa played a strong game one. They outshot Dallas almost 2-1. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa puts on a show like what Dallas did in game one and they get a multi goal win. Dallas won 4-1 in game one. I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa does something similar. That's why I'm taking the puck line at -1.5 plus 165.
I respect that. And I was actually reading that Steven Stamkos may come back at some point in this series, so it may not specifically be game two, but that's something to keep our eye on as well, Higgins.
Yes,
And
there's been lots of
obvious,
questions with Stamkos' injury.
yeah, and obviously that's such a hockey thing, right? Like,
Hmm.
guy misses 6 months. Oh yeah, I'll just come back for game four of the Stanley Cup Finals. No biggie. But what I'm kind of looking at here is the over under of 5.5. Now, the under 5.5 currently sits at -150, but these unders have been hitting like pretty much every game. So I'm leaning that way. I'm not willing to bet it at -150, but if that price dropped into the -130 range, -135, I could see myself hopping on there.
I'm looking at the last 5 games from each of these two teams, and obviously that's 9 games considering they played each other in game one. But the Dallas Stars, all 5 of their last 5 games would have hit that under. The Lightning, 4 of their last 5 games would have hit that under, with their farthest away game of those 5, the first of those last 5 games, being a 5-3 score. So Lightning's last 4 games, the under would have hit. Last 5 games for Dallas, that under would have hit. I wouldn't be surprised with that 5.5, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're right with that.
Yeah, it just we've been following it all postseason, that over under trend, and the unders have been coming in like crazy recently.
The goalies have been getting hot too, especially. I think no fans maybe helps them on defense. Or pay attention to where the puck's sliding across the ice or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's also hot goalies win, so now we're limiting it. And all the bad goalies, the cold goalies are out. Higgins, only the good ones remain.
Only the good ones remain. Kind of like how only the good ones remain in the NBA, and I'm talking about teams. We're down to the final four teams, the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals. We delayed our recording a little bit as the Lakers Nuggets game had us both on the edge of our seats on Sunday night. Anthony Davis with kind of a buzzer beater shot, surprisingly not going to be our money line magic, though. Where are your eyes for that game in terms of their Tuesday matchup? Because they're going to be the next game that gets played.
Well, this is now consecutive Sunday Higgins where Anthony Davis hits a buzzer beater. Alec Mills threw a no hitter. No one cares. There was football all day, 1 p.m. Eastern to about midnight. I don't know if anyone was watching baseball or basketball, but we found our way over for the last 5 minutes of that one. I think that loss is going to sting the Nuggets. They fought all the way back. They had a lead super late. They actually got a stop on the possession right before Anthony Davis hit the buzzer beater. So it's just tough to walk out of a gym losing like that and come back and bring the same energy the next game. And obviously, the Nuggets have to. And if there's a team that has rebounded well this postseason, it's certainly the Nuggets. 6-0 in elimination games this postseason, Higgins. So if they get down 3-0, 3-1, take the Nuggets.
Yeah, it's only a 2-0 series right now, so the Nuggets won't be facing elimination on Tuesday, but I'm sure they'd love to help their cause by making it 2-1 instead of a 3-0 hole. I'm looking at the game 4 that's going to happen on Wednesday though between Miami and Boston, and over 210.5 just feels right to me. I mean, both of these two teams have been averaging about 112, 113 all season long. This over under would have hit in 2 of the past 3 games so far in this playoff series. And I think 210.5, with how combative these teams have been, how close some of these games have been, the potential that there could be an overtime with how back and forth these battles have been. I'll take the over there. Over 210.5 feels good to me.
Yeah, it was a little concerning after game 2, where you heard all the reports in the locker room about the yelling and the throwing of things and whatever, but Boston seemed to respond to all that nonsense and
Yeah, they did.
came out strong in game 3. So I'm not really sure what I think is going to happen in game 4 here. I've just been staying away and enjoying this series, honestly, as a fan. And rooting for my guy Kemba Walker, who I'm grateful I got to spend a year with in Charlotte. I'm happy to see him playing deep into the postseason, Higgins.
It'll be interesting to see if your predictions of a Game 7 series happens again because Boston could tie this right back up, and then who knows? It's a short jaunt to Game 7 if it's a 2-2 tied series.
Yeah, I mean, these are two really well coached teams with defensive minded players as some of their better players. So that's how you win late in the playoffs, Higgins. You have to make plays on both ends of the court.
You know how else you win, at least in football?
Going down 20 early.
Going down 20 early, having a kicker that just kicks a really, really slow onside kick that no one wants to fall on. Um, and just playing the Falcons, who have been known to collapse with 20 plus point leads. I mean, in the NFL's history, teams that have scored 39 or more points with 0 turnovers are 440 and 0 coming into this Sunday. And then the Atlanta Falcons decide to play the Cowboys, get up 20 quick, make it a 19-point lead at 2 separate occasions in that first half, and still collapse. What an effort by that Dallas offense, but you gotta be shaking your head if you're Atlanta.
I mean, there was a time in this game where Dallas had multiple turnovers in like 10 plays. And then for Atlanta to play a pretty clean game and have a great offensive game like that, and just the defense not be able to hold the Cowboys under 39 points. That is brutal, Higgins. But a well deserving money line magic for the Cowboys, who needed some fourth quarter heroics. A huge onside kick that you talked about. Probably, yeah, one of the slower onside kicks I've ever seen.
I'm looking at the win probability tracker that's on ESPN right now from this matchup, and with 2:05 left, Ezekiel Elliott got pushed out at the Atlanta 1 yard line. The Falcons had an 85.3% chance to win this game with 2 minutes and 5 seconds left. And then Dallas scored like 16 seconds later on a Dak Prescott QB sneak. But that onside kick, there's no penalty for a Falcon to touch that ball early. There's a penalty for a Cowboy to touch it early. Why not just fall on that ball if you're Atlanta? There was a bunch of guys just standing around. I mean, I understand it was towards the Dallas sideline, so maybe they didn't hear a coach yelling for them to fall on it.
No, I think it was more you don't want to run up, touch it, mishandle it, and allow a Cowboy to touch it.
Turn
So
it into a
you're
live
you're
ball.
you're hoping that it doesn't go 10 yards. I mean, that was my read on it. Like, it kind of, he bent it like Beckham, Higgins. It really curved at the end, and got those last, I mean, not even to exaggerate, got those last 4 or 5 yards there. It just took the left turn.
Well, that's the advantage of a football's odd shape. It can just kick like that every once in a while. I mean, very, very odd. Ended up setting up a game-winning field goal by Greg Zerline, 46 yards. That's a respectable game-winning field goal. However, it's not like Harrison Butker's 58-yard field goal, which was his second of the day in that Chiefs win over the Chargers. We had some good finishes on NFL Sunday in week 2.
Yeah, not to mention in that Chiefs Chargers game, they made Buckner kick that kick three
Twice,
times.
three
There was,
times.
yeah, well, one was technically only 53 yards, a chip shot, really.
Hey, Brett, just a live update for you and the listeners right now as we're recording this. The Sunday Night Football is going on right now. Seattle did just score a touchdown to go up 28-17. That makes my over under of 45 at least a push, and that at least at this point right now is covering your -4, but there is still plenty of game to be played.
Yeah, there's game left. I'm not going to celebrate like I won or anything, but obviously being up 11 is better than being up 4.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let's get into our football segment right now. And before we talk about the Monday night game between the Saints and the Raiders, let's talk about the college football news that we had come out, Brett. Specifically, the Big Ten schedule came out. And we've mentioned a few times how Nebraska was a thorn in the side of the Big Ten. They wanted to potentially leave and make their own schedule for this season still. Big Ten wouldn't allow that to happen. Some players and parents threatened a lawsuit against the Big Ten. Big Ten did end up coming back. I gave credit a lot to Nebraska for making that happen. Well, the Big Ten scheduling committee kind of made Nebraska pay for being a thorn in their side because these first 4 weeks are brutally unfair compared to some of these other team schedules. However, if I was Scott Frost and Adrian Martinez, you got to look at this as an opportunity.
Yeah, at Ohio State versus Wisconsin, at Northwestern versus Penn State. I guess the good news is Wisconsin and Penn State travel to you, and Northwestern. It would be a tough game with fans in the stands anyway at noon in Chicago or 11 a.m. in Chicago, noon on the East Coast. So that one's always kind of a tough kickoff for the visiting teams. not much of a hype train. It's a little different than going to play Iowa or Wisconsin or Penn
Hmm.
State or Ohio State. It's a little bit sleepier in at Northwestern.
But speaking of scheduling, that's not the only scheduling news that we had come out this weekend. I mean, North Carolina's game ended up getting canceled, and they have an opening in their schedule that they can't seem to fill.
Yeah, so Charlotte didn't have enough O linemen this past weekend to play
So you
due
need
to
at least
COVID.
7, right?
Yeah, and it was due to COVID reasons. So UNC was trying to fill their out of conference slot. We're hoping maybe there's another team with a bye week this upcoming weekend, and they weren't able to fill it. So UNC will be without a game for 2 weeks before their next game, and they'll have one less game on their schedule than all the other ACC teams, Higgins. So just another fun wrinkle in the 2020 college football season.
So we have the SEC beginning their season this upcoming week. The Big Ten season starts around October 26th. There's been some rumors of the Pac 12 maybe trying to get started around Halloween. What is a bowl season or college football playoffs going to look like at this point? Because the ACC started on time. Is Trevor Lawrence and crew going to have to sit for 6 to 9 weeks as a full schedule comes out for those other competitive teams? I mean, it's going to be very odd no matter how it happens. And I guess they're happy to at least be playing in some capacity. It's There's just a lot of questions still.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the way that the Big Ten scheduled their conference is that they'll have to play straight through the bowl season, so they won't get like that 3 week off period to
Winter
recoup.
finals and
Right. So
yeah.
I think they'll just play through that like 3 week window there. But generally speaking, it shouldn't be too different for the SEC or even the ACC. Um, hopefully it's not. Hopefully it feels like a real college football playoff because those games are a lot of fun. Oklahoma always gets killed, but outside of that, it's a lot of fun. The college football playoff.
And it'll be very interesting to see because you mentioned a very key part of that, the 3 to 4 weeks break that are winter finals, recoup time for injured players to get back for the bowl games. We've already seen, and I'm jumping into the NFL now, week 2 was full of injuries to some big name players, some very key players on both sides of the ball for numerous teams. Injuries can play a big factor in football no matter the season, but considering there weren't OTAs, training camps were weird and abbreviated, there was no preseason or scrimmages for a lot of teams, whether that be college or the pros. It'll be very interesting to see how teams are able to handle and mitigate that risk. In the NFL, there has been a lot of rotations in some of these skill position players, and colleges have bigger rosters, so we'll see how that goes. But I mean, there's reports that Saquon Barkley may have torn his ACL today.
Yeah, it was not a great Sunday for NFL superstars staying healthy. Even at the end of the Panthers game, Christian McCaffrey went down. We saw a Bosa brother go down in the Jet game. Garoppolo went down in the San Francisco Jet game. So it's yeah, Higgins, it was not a great weekend for NFL players, but I do think it's interesting, kind of to continue the whole COVID related issues. Like we saw one of Michigan's backup quarterbacks, Dylan McCaffrey, obviously Christian McCaffrey and younger brother Ed
Hmm.
McCaffrey's son. He's transferring from Michigan, and then Tate Martell, a former top recruit, Ohio State, couldn't get on the field there. Transferred to Miami. Then De'Ara King transferred in, so he's struggling to get on the field there. He's trying to transfer, and like, I just think if I was a coach during this time, I'd want as much talent as possible in my program. I'd just be like, no, Trust me, you want to stay here because we have no idea what could happen to our starting quarterback in a week, in 3 days, in 2 hours. So it's just so much up in the air. I just think these coaches are crazy for letting some of this talent walk out mid-season.
Next man up mentality. I remember it being preached in sports all throughout growing up. Especially in football, you never know with an injury that can happen on any play. You got to be ready to fill that void. And I agree, there's some backups that are leaving positions that you never know. It could be COVID, it could be an injury from the weird process that we've had in terms of training. You could be in next week in
Right.
the second quarter. Like,
Right. I mean, even if it's just not directly COVID related, just from all the restrictions of COVID and everyone's bodies aren't fully in tune to game shape, and all of a sudden, you're in the second half. It's crazy all the variables this year, and you just see some of these kids walking out of school. I'm like, like you're really not that far away from playing of
mhm.
all seasons this season.
Well, let's jump in and talk about Monday night's game, though, because we do still have an NFL game to talk about, Brett. The Saints versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is the debut of that shiny black stadium that was built in Vegas. It looks amazing. I can't wait to see the. Uh, there's going to be plenty of packages. They're going to hype that up in the broadcast, obviously. It'll be very cool to see what a Las Vegas football stadium is going to look like completely finished now. But Brett, we're testing the pillars again, and I know that this stadium is known to have pillars.
Yeah, we're testing the limits here, but maybe it's just that good of a pick, Higgins. It really could just be that simple. Drew Brees, it is a road game, but he's playing in a dome and he's playing on turf, and no Michael Thomas, but Emmanuel Sanders is there, Cook's there, Kamara's playing. So I feel pretty good about New Orleans, even on the road, at under a touchdown favorites versus the Raiders at -5.5.
Yeah, -5.5. If it was close to the like a point closer, a point and a half to that full touchdown, I probably would have stayed away and found a different way to get into this game. But -5.5, I think that that is easily manageable, even without Michael Thomas. You mentioned Emmanuel Sanders. I drafted him on my fantasy team this year because I thought he would be an excellent complement to Michael Thomas in that offense. Now, with Thomas having to sit out this game, I think Sanders will get a lot of targets here. Kamara, he played fantastic, showing how happy he is once he got paid last week. And you always got to remember Taysom Hill. You can line him up anywhere. You can line him up literally
True
anywhere.
wild card.
That over under at 48.5, though, I'm not very confident in that over. I'm going to stay away from it, but I don't have faith in Derek Carr to put points up to compete against Drew Brees in that sense, so I don't know if that 48.5 is going to really happen. Like that would
Yeah,
take 28 to 21.
yeah, 48.5. It seems a little high. I'd probably lean under on that. The Saints actually do have a pretty good defense, and the Raiders have some good athletes in their secondary as well, and some guys that can get after the quarterback. So it could be under that 48.5 for sure.
Yes. The New Orleans money line, by the way, -235. Might be a good parlay partner with something if you find it. Maybe go cross sports and go with some of those MLB picks that we were giving out earlier, like the Cubs Yankees leans that you and I gave out that there weren't lines out for yet, but could potentially be heavy enough. I could see that Yankees potentially being in the 200s, or the Cubs against the Pirates, who have played abysmally. The Pirates 1-9 in their last 10, like I've said a few times on this podcast. Both could be good parlay partners, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll tell you how I'm playing that Yankee game for my Levy lock here.
Yeah, you
Uh,
have the honors because you won your Levy lock.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna win one bet, win the lock. So that's what I try and do, and it came through this week. But I'm feeling pretty confident about my Seattle bet. Up 5 with about 11 minutes left in the game. So we'll see how that one plays out. But for Monday's slate, I am going to find myself on the Yankees over when it comes out. That line is not available yet. But that is my lock. The Yankees playing in Toronto. They have a lot of power in their lineup. Shoemaker is on the mound for the Blue Jays, and he is 0-1 with an ERA north of 4. So, pitching in a small ballpark, gives up runs. Yankees have a lot of power. Yankees over.
All right. And Brett, your confidence in your Seattle pick, I'm letting you know right now, is having me live bet on the Patriots money line. I'm not confident in you. I'm sorry. And it's around plus 195, plus 200. I'm taking that, so I'm going to take the Patriots money line right now. But my pick of the pod, staying with football, is going back to that Saints minus 5.5. I just think Drew Brees and company, they're going to go in ready to do their business, even without Michael Thomas. And I think they should do okay with that. So minus 5.5, I'm still sitting rather comfortable feeling that one.
Well, Higgins, if you just burn the money, at least you'll warm your house.
That is true. That can always warm up your house a little bit. That's what Pablo Escobar did at one point, I believe. You hear the Yankees over, Saints minus 5.5. That's the Levy lock and the pick of the pod. Make sure to follow us on social media as we have some more picks to give out. Like for that Lakers Nuggets game on Tuesday that we did not have a line out for tonight. At MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. This has been episode 78 of the Next Best Bet, and sports feel basically entirely back, except for fans not being here. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys again on Thursday.